Hello there, Factorial Nerds. This is my proudest and most unique creation yet. It's the ship that reaches the Shattered Planet at 1000 kilometers a second without slowing down. No, I'm not kidding, it goes until the end of the strip at 1000 kilometers a second without any tricks like buffers or crazy technology levels, while being symmetric, super compact, and not overbuilt. In this video, I'm going to show it in detail, talk about my inspirations to make this ship, compare it with the first prototype, my goal of creating a speedrunning category for this, and in the end I'm going to show it reaching the Shattered Planet and its stats. Let's start off by introducing its unique quirks. If you just want to see it reaching the Shattered Planet, please skip to the last chapter. So, first off, it's fully symmetric. If I get a copy of its half here and remove the thrusters, you'll see that it's 100% symmetric. Look at this, and it's so perfect, except, wait, what is that? It isn't symmetric. Oh, that is because due to the nature of thrusters, I cannot make it 100% symmetric since they cannot be flipped. So these pipes here connecting to the thrusters are the only parts that are not symmetric. The ship is also super compact, and that is because I'm a guy that loves designing compacted blueprints, and all of the Shattered Planet ships are basically squares with a lot of unused space, and I wanted to change that. So this ship is really compact at the point that I cannot improve it any further because it would require more size and an entire redesign. For a quick overview, I will do a deep dive later on. Here's the basic stuff. This entire part here at the top of this platform hub is guns, a bunch of guns. Exactly 112 legendary rocket turrets and 36 non-legendary turrets, along with 28 legendary railguns. The non-legendary rocket turrets are on the side so they don't waste ammo with the side asteroids here. This entire part is for processing asteroids, grabbing them, processing them, and turning into intermediates and fuel, and also energy here, although the energy is by fusion. And this entire part here is for ammo, produces all the ammo in the world. And the entire bottom part is just for thruster stacking. There's 5 rows of thrusters in total, and each row of thrusters has its own separate ammo defense, instead of just using laser turrets because they are less reliable. And that is how we go at 1000 kilometers a second. Another important point of this ship is its tech levels. There's a lot of ships that just have crazy high tech levels, and this is not one of them. We only have at max 1 million science spec research of laser weapon damage, physical projectile damage, the railgun researches, the asteroid productivity. Even though it's higher here, it could be at a max 1 million science spec research. And the only one that isn't 1 million max is the stronger explosives because they need to be higher. So in this case it's 2 million, and it could also be 4 million, so it's better. How much time does it take me to gather? Well, because this ship has only one speed, so it can't increase its speed or diminish its speed while going there. It reaches the Shattered Planet at 1 hour and 6 minutes, and that's using math. That is considering all the time I have 60 PS, but I'm running a Ryzen 5600 processor, so it's an entry-level CPU. That's why, even though I'm not looking at the ship, about in the middle of the trip I will start dipping UPS. So I actually only get there in 1 hour and a half of real time, which is still the world record, I mean, but it does take quite some time. With the main points out of the way, I will get into the more production side of things. So let's start off with the asteroid collectors here. So the asteroid collectors here, as you can see, there's no asteroid reprocessing, and you might wonder why. And well, that's because in the Shattered Planet trip there is so many asteroids, as you can see here, that reprocessing or just making a sushi belt is simply not unnecessary. I have one asteroid collector for each type of chunk except Prometheum, because Prometheum we are not collecting, and it just goes into its own belt without any asteroid reprocessing or anything. So let's start with the ice asteroid belt. You can see it goes directly here into the processing, where the single crusher makes the entire ice for the both of the water plants, and the entire calcite for all of the metal processing here. By the way, this is one side of the ship, it's symmetric, so both sides are independent, and that is why I'm going to showcase only one side. And you can see that all the calcite is already good enough for all the fuel here, and the water that comes from here goes here. It's a lot of spaghetti, but if it works, it's not a spaghetti. It goes to the thrusters. I must mention that the thrusters are actually the bottleneck of the ship. These campans are the bottleneck of the ships, and that's because they have a cap on the amount of thrust can go to the pipe. So even though the thrusters here are not at a max efficiency, and that's because we don't have enough fuel, it's barely enough to give me 1000 kilometers a second of speed, and the pipes come all the way here down to the thrusters, and they meet up in the middle and go down to all the rows of thrusters. So now for the metal asteroid chunks. You can see that this barely fits. If I toggle the belt here, both of these underground belts are at max length, and it barely reaches the processing here. One crusher that directly inserts the iron for the crusher production belts and for all the metals in the entire ship. So copper foundry here and the iron foundry, and then the excess copper is thrown here into a waste belt along with some of the excess calcite, and it is thrown away here, as you can see. And these foundries have some spaghetti shenanigans. The metal pipe barely gets here in the middle, and here it's casted. The steel is casted into the belt, and it goes along with the explosives for the railguns production. And here is the plate production, which it barely is enough to feed all the normal rocket production, and the ammo production here. The ammo and the railguns meet here, as you can see, and they go through this belt until they reach here, which is these 3 tiles here basically pass all of the resources and the ammos up, and they go all the way up to the railguns and the gun turrets. Also, the copper from the railguns come also snaked from the middle here, all the way from here, the liquid pipe that goes into the copper foundry and makes the copper. Now for the most complex one, which is the carbonic asteroid, and that is because the carbonic asteroid is by far the most used asteroid chunk. So first off, it goes here, and this processing of the asteroids is crucial, but this is only for ammo. This crusher here is for the carbon for fuel. So it first passes through the ammo processing here, the carbonic asteroid processing for ammo, and it gets here to make explosives. So explosives are actually one of the main bottlenecks of this ship. They barely produce enough to keep up with demand, and that is why all of the beacons here are touching the explosives production here. There is also an overflow system for carbon here, because since I'm using productivity modules of the chemical plants for co-synthesis, they need a way out. So here's the thrashing of it. Thruster carbonic production here is separate, and it goes here the carbon goes all the way here, snakes up through here, and it meets up with the calcite here. A lot of other belt shenanigans to reach the chemical plants producing the thruster. The explosives here, they go into two belts, and by the way, these are not full belts. These are 139 a second each, so two belts that turn into three half belts, and that is because the entire design of ammo here actually is super finicky. It uses only one side of the belt, so this entire part here using two belts that are max size use, let me highlight it, they barely make it so that this design works. Each side here goes into one of the up and down parts here of this design, and this spits out the rockets, explosive rockets, in the outermost edge of the belt, and it goes here to the rocket belt. And this belt right here is loaded from both sides, so it creates a small buffer, and some of the rockets also go down here, all the way down here, to meet up with the ammo and go to the thruster stacking. As you can see here, the last of the last explosives actually go on a belt part here, just so they can feed these final assemblers that can't get enough from the normal belts. So that is basically the entire production. Now let's move on to the guns. I'm using a gun design here for rocket turrets, which are the most important turret for any Shadow Planet ship. Most of the Shadow Planet ships that I see are capped by the amount of rocket turrets, and that is why I'm using this nose design. Not only does it increase the amount of rocket turrets, but it also makes so the corners aren't weak, and that's because these railguns here that are diagonal can not only shoot up, but they can also shoot here, so the corners aren't weak, and that is a huge advantage. That also allows me to make a lot more rocket turrets here, put a lot more rocket turrets here, and these rocket turrets also get a much better place, so they can shoot here. As you can see here, it's relatively a low amount of gun turrets to go at this speed, because the gun turrets are only for small and medium asteroids, and the most of the damage here is done by rocket turrets and the railguns that shoot at the huge asteroids. And look at how far we already are. This is basically a solid wall of asteroids already. Okay, so now that you understand basically the entire ship, I will show you the prototype and the other version of this ship. This, in the left side here, is the first prototype of this ship, and in the right it's the final design that I was showing. And you can see that there was a lot of difference between the first prototype and the final design. For example, the production of ammo is completely different, and the thruster production is also less, and that is because the first prototype was targeting 500 kilometers a second, and it reached that. But then I saw that there was so much missing potential, like this empty space, and so much optimization opportunities here in the production part, that I doubled the goal to 1000 kilometers a second, and here it is. It basically is a lot better in every way, in the same space. That proves that with a lot of thinking you can optimize basically any build. You can see here that this is producing 97 rockets a second and 13 railgun ammo a second, while this, which is about the same space, a little less, is producing 53 explosive rockets and 16 railguns a second. See that the explosive here is producing a lot more explosives here, just with beacon placement, and the entire space is utilized instead of letting this entire space not utilized. However, not everything changed. The processing of the metal asteroids didn't change at all, and the ice here is basically the same, except I added another chemical plant for water. You might be wondering how much time it took to design this, and the answer is this. The first prototype took me about 2 to 3 afternoons, and that is because I love making compact blueprints, so I kind of already have some experience, and I have 1,000 hours of factorial. This is exactly my 1,000 hour of factorial. And then to get from the first prototype to the final design, it took me a full weekend. So now my main inspiration, which is Tolan1000. He is a micro streamer that I follow and basically a friend of mine, and we were competing to see who could get to the Shattered Planet at the fastest speed. His ship, which is this ship, got there at in 377 kilometers a second, and I wanted to prove him wrong, because he thought that if you make the ship really thin, it would need to deal with less asteroids and hence be faster and more agile. And I said that the wider the ship, the more production you can get exponentially, and you don't need to deal with that much asteroids. So you can see here, if I put the mine blueprint and his ship here, you can see that, yeah, that is a big difference. And my ship goes 3 times as fast, so take that, Tolan. He's a great guy, by the way, and if you want to check his ship out and his video about the ship, I will leave it in the description. By now you might have guessed that with this many competition and this many effort put into this ship, I want to make something for the factorial community itself, and I want to make a speedrunning category for this type of stuff, because this is basically the pinnacle of factorial. This is the ultimate goal basically of the game, and I'm surprised that there are not that many people making high-speed chips to reach the Shattered Planet, and I want that to change. So I'm going to try to create a speedrunning category for the ships that reach from the solar system edge until the Shattered Planet in the higher speed and the least in-game time, that is accounting at 60 UPS, the least in-game time possible. I think it would fit well with the community, because it would basically be a leaderboard of the best designs of ships in the world, and it really fits in with the community of designing blueprints and enhancing them. Okay, now that you have waited the whole video of me yapping about this ship and you want to see it reaching the Shattered Planet, you might think I'm going to do a time-lapse, but I won't, because that was probably going to take 3 hours and I don't have enough storage or time for that. So I made a pre-prepared save here with the exact ship reaching the Shattered Planet, and here it is. Look at all its glory. It's still going at 1,000 kilometers a second. I'm going to talk about the stats here. Actually, before that, you might have noticed that I have 0 damage taken, but there is a damage railgun. Well, how did it happen? Well, probably I was AFK. Probably a rocket turret hit an asteroid close enough to damage the railgun turret, and that is why, even though this ship is super reliable, it can still take some damage at times. So I better off just increasing a bit the stronger explosive technology, just to increase the reliability of the ship. So let's see at the damage stats. Look at how much damage these railguns at the front that shoot the most have. This is absolutely insane, by the way. That's like billions of damage, if you see in the tooltip there. And for the rocket turrets, which are the second turrets that most shoot and most do damage, also millions and millions of damage. It's insane the amount of damage that there is in one single trip. And the gun turrets are a lot less, because they only take down the small asteroids that pass through the circle of explosions of death that the rocket turrets create. Let's see energy, and you'll see that the energy is actually pretty tight. This two-core reactor produces 1 gigawatt, but because of the fluctuating of the railguns that use energy, it is basically using everything. You see the average 800 megawatts, and it can peak a lot higher at 1.1 gigawatt. And now for the production stats, let's first look at the kills. You see here that by far the most I did the filters. By far the most killed asteroid is the small Promethean, and that's obvious because the Prometheans are the ones that most have. So if you look here at the travel, there's a lot of Prometheans here. And look at the amount of Prometheans that are killing. 500,000 small Promethean asteroids per minute are being killed. 170 per minute of medium Promethean asteroids. And if you get here all the huge and the big ones from all asteroids, we can see the differences. The medium, look at this big Promethean asteroids, by far the largest number of kills at 60,000 a minute, and the huge Promethean asteroids are killed more than any other asteroid combined, than non-Promethean asteroid combined. 22,000 huge Promethean asteroids per minute. That is insane. Now let's look at items and fluids. 1.4 million production and 1.4 million consumption of the thrusters. Now for the items here, 31,000 a minute of explosives being consumed. That is the main bottleneck, basically, to make rockets 10,000 a minute. You can see we are producing 10,000 a minute and consuming 10,000 a minute, so it's really neck and neck. A little bit of overproduction on the rockets. You can see it's backing up a little bit, and ooh, look at that, we are going to reach it in anytime now. Whoa. And we can't even see. I have the visible planets mod, and we can't even see because of the amount of asteroids. However, I cannot let it stand still because it doesn't have defenses on the side, so let's put it back to novice. And you can see that it's actually self-sustaining at this point of the trip. It's not just buffers. Here are the more details of the items if you want to pause to see. 800 railguns railgun ammo per minute, and for the entire trip, which is an hour. I don't know what these dips here are. I think the speed was a little bit lower, but I fixed something there. And you can see the amount of the sheer production, how it scales, especially in the kills here. Look how much it scales in the asteroid kills. Now that you have watched a lot of me yapping about this ship, I must finish the video. If you guys have any comments about anything in the ship, and you probably will have because the ship is really big, I promise to answer them. The main language is not English though, that's why I don't speak that well, and I am not an actual content creator. I'm just a guy showing this sick ship I made, and you can like it or not. I won't be making any money on this video. However, if you like it, it will reach more Factorial nerds like us. I hope you liked it, and thanks for watching.